Alright, I may have done a similar um, video on wilderness, but I think this one's more prevalent because I feel like I've been put in the wilderness to learn and to grow and to be isolated and kind of away from everything. But welcome to my channel. This is Outdoor Nature Adventure Ministry, I think is what I would call it. I've changed it, so I don't know. Anyway, I am at a state park where I live, way up in the hill or in the mountains. You can't see it, but up and over that hill, about 4 to 10 miles from me, is a major wildfire. Um, but I felt, well, what I would really like is to learn Hebrew, because when I've been reading it, it's Hebrew is complex and words mean different things, and they can mean a group of different things. So it's not just one and done. I mean, there's more to it. Like there's different words for love, there's different words for faith. And so today I want to go over and do a thorough, and I've written my notes on wilderness, because, and then talk about some of those points as I go along. Because everyone goes through the wilderness, sometimes once, but more likely a lot more than once. And it's a testing time. It's a trying time. It's a time where God meets you. And there's a lot of examples which we'll go over. But in Hebrew, the word for wilderness, I think there's like Arabah, so it's Arabah, is one word for wilderness. And they made variations of like desert, desolation, a dry place kind of thing. And I find it interesting that Hebrew doesn't have vowels. So the word is actually MDBR, because there are no vowels. And there is another word, Medabar, so there's Midbar. Medabar is speaking, which is very similar and has the same exact words, but it's so you could say that MDBR, so God speaks in the wilderness, which He does, but according to what I've been reading up, and I've found several sites, it's actually kind of interesting. It's variations of how desert and isolated it is. One of the definitions is an arid area, and the Bible uses this interchangeably. And I found that the Bible, there's two different, I don't know which one's right, and it may be because it's been altered, or different translations. But Midbar comes up 272 times in the Old Testament, in one version, and then 300 times in the Old Testament in another version. So I don't know, and but we're going to talk about this. But it also means a place where the shepherds take the flock to graze. So wilderness can be a place where, I mean, back then they didn't have fences. Well, I mean, they did to a point, but they didn't have miles and miles of fence to go, oh, you're on my land. And I mean, you have thousands of acres, so or even hundreds of acres. You're not going to know who walked on what and when and where. And, I mean, if you're like on hills like over here, I mean, there's forested, and I mean, back then it's like, okay, but yeah, I'm getting off topic. But here they actually had a cattle and sheep war, which I find kind of ridiculous. This area is huge, but they fought over water rights, and they ate in the same places, and I guess we're worried about how their cattle will grow up. So, but Midbar is described as a place existing in perfectly arranged order, and and also in harmony and balance. An example is Israel was placed here to teach them balance, order, and harmony in everything. Environment was a reason and has a place. So Israel was placed here, and God was trying to see. I think He was testing them to see where their hearts are at, and He also needed to teach them and test them in His holy ways, because they had been in Egypt for a very long time, or not a very long time, but a long time, and so they had to be retaught, and so they went to the wilderness, and in the environment. Has everything has and this came to me when I was going through this, that everything in the environment has a reason and place, and was put in place for harmony and balance, and then we came along and messed everything up. Man thinks that we know better than God. A lot of men out there now think that there is no God, which is stupid, because everything, the clouds, the critters and everything else, were put under subjection by God to us. Like I've been reading, I think it's in Enoch, but in one of them, it talks about how God made the animals dumb, and they made them, and dumb meaning they went from being able to talk and being able to kind of lead their own life to being malleable and usable. I think we're gonna find out when we get to heaven that animals can talk, and it actually, there's another place in the Bible where God asks animals, and the animals accuse people of what they have done to harm them. Like if you've gone out and just like done really harmful, really bad, abominable things to dogs or anything, then you're hurting the creation, and you're hurting what God has made. And so beasts have, many places in the Bible have been used to be a punishment and a judgment. Many times serpents were sent to the people. Many times, like there's been locust swarms. Look at the Egypt plagues. They had the frogs and the locusts, and so locusts and frogs have been used a lot, and there have been others. God uses different environmental things. He makes day last way longer than it should. He makes night last way longer than it should. He brings the rain. He brings everything around. But we live in a land where things are out of place, where we try to come in and do what we want, or a lot of times in our houses, what's really ridiculous is we're so stubborn and pig-headed that we take things that don't belong there, or this will look good in my yard, and there's actually environmentally invasives and exotics that we want in our yard just for the hell of it, and they get out of control, and then they get in the environment, and they take off, and we wonder how that happened. And it's like, okay, well, people are especially the rich push a certain agenda in a certain way, and so everything goes really crazy. But I was writing this last night, and looking up the different definitions. What I did is I screenshot a lot of the stuff that I needed to look up, because I live in the middle of nowhere where I have no cell signal. But God wanted them to completely depend on Him and be in harmony with Him and His world. He wanted them to do things His way and be in balance with Him. He wanted them to be in harmony with each other in Yahweh, or YHWH, is God the Father, as much as I can understand. But He wanted to bring them back into subjection under Him. He wanted to bring the people, and He had Moses go up and get the 10 Commandments and have a new covenant being placed on them. And we know, do not murder, do not steal, do not covet, do not do not have any gods before God, before Yahweh. Honor thy mother, thy father. I can't remember. Steal. Do not steal. Um, but yeah, we have to honor God. So wilderness is a place where God gets our attention. And God puts people in the wilderness to shape and mold them, to put them in places where nothing seems to be going right. Wilderness is a testing ground of faith, perseverance, long suffering, endurance, and remaining steadfast. And this is so true. Some wilderness experiences are quicker than others. Um, what I have learned throughout my life, I've been put in many wilderness experiences because I was. God was trying to wake me up many times in my life, and I was too. My eyes, I mean, they were kind of open, but they weren't really open. Like, I thought I was doing the right thing. I was going to church and doing, hey, I'm going to church, and I started doing the Wednesday thing a little bit, but didn't really get into that. And I was reading the Bible every so often. And God, I've moved many times. I have had many jobs. I've left places too quickly. But God knew where I would go and what I would do. I don't know if I've probably been out of the will of God. But wilderness is a place where everything is put back in balance, where things are put back in balance and harmony. And harmony is with God the Father. I mean, if we're going to live with Him for all of eternity, you don't think He wants us to live in harmony with Him? And that means praising Him and glorifying Him through our acts and our service and doing the right thing and acting the right way, because this world, yeah. It's a shocker when I go to town now, because I live out in the middle of nowhere, and my nearest, well, I don't know, I have neighbors that occasionally these cabins are filled with people, but my neighbors are deer and fox, and I have a dog. but I go into town, and it's like, when I go into town, it's like a craziness, because I'm so isolated out here that when I get back to town, it's people honking and trying to run each other over and mean to each other and spiteful. And children of God are meant to take this. I mean, we're supposed to, if someone kicks us in one cheek, we're supposed to offer the other. We're supposed to not retaliate. We're supposed to allow God to avenge us and to retaliate. So, but yeah, wilderness is definitely, and I've noticed throughout my life that my wilderness experiences have grown longer and tougher. Because if I would have gone through my wilderness experience that I just had, got over this past, like, mid-May, where I got out of Florida and out of some really, well, not really tough, I would say tough for me, situations where I was not happy, where I was actually throwing a fit, and I'm sure God could have easily taken my life, because it says, do not grumble, do not mumble, and several 100,000 people were killed in Moses' time when he was leading them through the deserts, and people grumbled against God, and God was not happy with them. He wanted them to trust Him completely, and they didn't trust Him. They didn't. I mean, for whatever reason, when Moses left, things kind of went to pot, and they wanted to worship the golden calf, and so they went to Aaron. So I guess you need a strong leader who will lead you the right way. You need someone that will lead you down the right path. And right now, the leaders in churches, from what I've seen and heard, are not leading correctly. They're basing their stuff off of numbers and off money, instead of lives being changed. Churches should be I've heard it being termed a hospital where people that are broken and hurting, churches should be a place where people can get a safe night's stay. They should be a place where people are offered food and resources and help to get back on their feet. And I don't see that with modern churches at all. It's like there are few, but most churches are like, hey, well, good luck on your, and pat you on the back, and off you go out the door. Um, so wilderness is a testing ground. I mean, look at Jesus when he was tested in the wilderness. Look at how the devil tempted him. It's like, oh, well, the devil said, I can give you all of this, and everything will be yours, and you'll be able to do whatever you want if you just if you do this, or why don't you call the angels and in order to save you from falling off the cliff, or but the devil tempted him, and that's what the devil does to each and every one of us. He tempts us. He puts us in situations where it's like, okay, well, I can offer you riches and nice jobs and fancy cars and big houses and this, that, and the other. And it's like, the thing is you need to realize all this stuff is temporary. It will all fall apart. It will all disintegrate. And when the judgments of God come down, like they're about to, things are not going to go well. Like, I have this car, let's see, it's a 2012, so it's 11 years old, and it's almost 12 years old. And I've had it for a very long time. It's a somewhat reliable car that lately it's been having issues, but yeah. But wilderness is also a testing ground where God puts us in situations like the death of a family member, loss of a job, and a lot of times, I mean, there have been people that have gone to the wilderness, and we see examples in the Bible. I don't know any off the top of my head, where people are put in the wilderness and they can't hear. Like while Elijah was put in the wilderness, Jesus was put in the wilderness, John the Baptist was in the wilderness. John the Baptist even baptized Jesus in the wilderness in the Jordan. So, but wilderness is also a place where it's like a getaway. It's my getaway, definitely. But I mean, you're undistracted. Like out here, I don't have cell signal. I don't have TV. I don't have movies or music or anything to distract me. I have God. I have books. I have a dog, and a lot of people may find this boring, but I can go out there on the lake and go fishing. I can go kayaking. I can ride these mountains all around me on bikes. I can go hiking. I can go running. If I had someone to do stuff with, I mean, we could do board games and play cards, and I can cook a fire or whatever I want in there. So there are things to do besides what we have. I mean, people for thousands of years have done without computers. They've done without social media. They've done without all this unnecessary crap that we fill our lives with. Sorry, I've weed-eated today. My allergies are going crazy. But we need to find a alternate source of how to spend our time and what to do. I'm sorry, I'm being distracted because there's a deer right there. So like I said, yeah, that's one deer, and there was another one up the hill a little ways. That may be one the same. I'm surprised my dog has not taken off at this point. But yeah, there are things you can do with your time other than mess around with a computer. And the computer and social media, by the way, can get you in really big trouble because you can say something on there, you can do something on there, and it'll lead you down the wrong path. And everything you say, do, gets recorded in the books of heaven. And don't do it, Toby. Do not. Sorry, I have to tell my dog not to run, as my dog is eyeing the deer that's up there. But so yeah. In Isaiah 35:1 says, "The wilderness and the wasteland shall be glad for them, and the deserts shall rejoice and blossom as a rose, like the crocus, and will blossom profusely and rejoice with joy and jubilation." God also talks about how we are supposed to, it doesn't just say humans, it says all of creation, to to basically tell of God's goodness, to glorify God, to tell about what's around us. And so, but yes, there are different versions of wilderness. And that's why we need to study the Hebrew language, is because, or just different words like trust or faith. And I've written notes about both of those too. What is the wilderness? A place to encounter with God, a place to talk to God and let Him show you the way. Elijah, Moses, John the Baptist, testing of Jesus. Yah is the voice calling in the wilderness. God uses these different places for something meaningful and powerful. I mean, look at the Garden of Gethsemane when Jesus talked to God. It's like, I really don't want to do this. And then he said, "Not my will, but your will be done." And he said, "Okay, well, for you, I'll do it." So, but yes, Elijah was seeking God in the wilderness, and he heard God. I mean, there's a thing where it said, "Oh, he's not in the wind, he's not in the blah blah blah. He's a still small voice." So God wants us to listen for Him, and He wants us to go after Him and read His Word. And I don't mean read His Word just monthly. I mean get in His Word daily. It's there for us to read and to check out. And don't do it, Toby. Deer, you're actually... This deer is getting closer and closer. But yes, God uses a lot of our testing time to grow us into the people that He wants us to be. He uses these testing encounters and places in the wilderness to get rid of our rough edges and to humble us, and to have us rely on Him. When you get to the end of your rope and there's nothing more you can do, and you're like, okay, well, nothing's going right. I've tried everything that I can do, and nothing I've done has worked. So it's up to you, kind of thing. And the thing is if you forgive and repent of your ways, oh, great, mosquito. I'm also now getting bit by mosquitoes. Sorry, Toby. Okay, I'm getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. Okay. But yes, God uses these wilderness experiences, and He wants us to grow. He doesn't want us to stagnate and be the same people. There's a reason why we came to this world. There's a reason why our souls wanted to come down here and do what we're doing right now. Believe it, well, from what I've heard, I don't know if it's 100%, but there's NDEs, near-death experiences, that people have had, that supposedly we signed contracts, or our souls signed contracts to come down here because this is the only place where we can learn and grow and do this. So it's a place where we can go to seek Him and hear from Him. Okay, sorry, I'm turning the page now. But most, well, I would say most want to avoid deserts and hard times. We do everything we can to not hurt and to not experience heartache, loneliness, in hard situations. But wilderness isolates us. It will make us depend solely on God. It will, but yeah, most people want to do everything they can to avoid those situations. And that's the reason why people that are rich don't really see God, because their money can buy them out of the situation. Like if all you have is God, like if you're poor, or if you're going through a hard situation like the wilderness, the only thing you have is God. So you're going to rely completely on Him. But if you have money and prestige and your good looks or whatever, and I mean, that's going to help, but all that will end. So but I mean, yes, we want to avoid these places like the plague, and to no, Toby, hey, no sir, I don't want you going up after him. We avoid these things like the plague. Most people don't want to experience heartache. They don't want to experience loneliness. They would rather be a serial dater and go from one person to another person to another person. And if that relationship feels like it's getting out of control and not going the right way that they want, they leave. Divorce is at an all-time high. And it says in the Bible, if you are a divorced person and get remarried, you're committing adultery, period. So no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But Moses, from what I could tell, did sign contracts and stuff, or nullifying marriages, which God didn't want to be done in the first place. But yeah, so wilderness is a place where, well, the thing is wilderness is a necessary thing. Without wilderness, we don't know the people we are. We don't know how strong we are. We don't know how much we can learn, and it brings you to your knees, and it shows you how strong you are, how much courage you have, how much faith you have. And it builds our faith. I mean, it builds us. It builds us up, and we learn and we grow. And in my opinion, if you don't have hard battles and difficult situations, you'll never grow. You'll always be that same person. You'll always do whatever it is you're doing, and you won't learn. And if no one tells you you're wrong, then life is going to be interesting. So, I mean, if God doesn't say wrong way or do something and put you in wilderness or hard situations, then you're going to think, oh, well, I'm doing everything right and everything's going great. And but yeah. And so also Jesus and his disciples chose wilderness for rest and some quality time. Garden of Gethsemane, had to escape from people. Well, I don't know if it was escaping from people. It was more of a trying to recharge and regroup kind of thing. And so, but yeah, so Jesus, I mean, he talked to his disciples on the side of the mountain about how things should go, and the final marching orders, and the people with the 5,000 fish and that type of thing were following Jesus, and God took care of them. I mean, 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he made them and multiplied them. So it's showing that we can trust him, and we limit God's ability, or we limit him and what he can do. He can do so many more things than we allow him to. It says that I will get rid of your diseases, that I will heal you, and I will care for you, and you don't need to worry, and you don't need to. However, it also says that we need to work and do our thing. It doesn't say be lazy and just expect everything to fall in your lap. But we have to put in effort. And it's a place where we experience closeness and intimacy with Yahweh. It's a place where, right now, I'm reading the Bible more than I ever have before, and doing things differently. It's giving me new eyes to see, and I'm working and doing more. So it's a good place. And this guy is decided to get even closer. It doesn't seem that close, but yes, this deer has decided to come near to me. Hey deer. He's just munching away. So yes, so I'm definitely in the wilderness. These are my neighbors. Thankfully my dog has decided not to pursue him. Usually if something's up on the hill, he'll go after and whimper until he gets his way and goes after him. Thankfully he is not. But the wilderness, yes. There's a whole lot of different things that the wilderness provides for us. There's different variations of wilderness, which I guess is variations of our different hardships. We have some that are like, holy crap, man, I wish that, like our mom or dad or whoever dying. That's a lot worse than, hey, I got a flat tire, or I don't know, a car issue, maybe like an easier one. But yeah. So anyway, thank you for joining me. Sorry I'm now having to fight insects and all kinds of things. And Mr. Deer is, I'm in a chair and now he's coming closer. Seriously? Yeah, he's now walking through. This is my wilderness experience. Earlier when I was up on the hillside looking for the fire, I saw, I thought they were two dogs, and they turned out to be two foxes. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. I also have chipmunks and golden male ground squirrels and birds, and we have elk roaming the area, and some other things as well. So yeah, the wilderness is not a bad place. There are a lot of animals out here, and I'm in the wilderness. I love being out here. I think the reason why a lot of people fear the wilderness is they haven't been taught about it. It's a place where if you know what's going on, it's not a bad place. I've never had animals jump out and say, hey, I'm gonna take you down. There is, by the way, a big claw mark on my door, which is kind of funny. That's Mr. Bear left, not when I was here, but in other times. But yes, wilderness is a place where you have to be careful and choose the right path. But God says to come to Him, and He will lead you on the right path and make you go the right way. So that's what we do. No, sir, you're not going after him. You may hear a helicopter in the background. Right up and over that ridge, probably 20-30 miles from me is a fire. So yes, thank you for joining me. I'm going to do other videos and other things, but I just wanted to talk about wilderness. But it's time to come to God. It's time to repent and turn from your ways. We may be entering a time where God will take His chosen into the wilderness to take care of them, because the beast system is coming online. and it's all around. I'm seeing cameras being aimed at heads. Surveillance systems are going in. I've seen hand ID machines going in Europe, where you can't get into the store unless you scan the palm of your hand or use a digital ID. And certain states in the U.S. are passing digital ID, which will eventually be a chip in your hand, and you'll wave your hand over the machine and they'll go, hey, and that chip will have all kinds of different things. And a lot of people will fall for it. But those that are in the know will not. Like the so-called, I don't know what to call it. When we had the blow up and the scare recently, and we were all locked down, we were given a certain something in our body that actually is really bad. It has luciferase, and it's not good for us. It actually causes autoimmune diseases and other things. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me again. Take care. God bless.